at building this timeline in Articulate Storyline using layers. We're also going to add a variable, and it's going to look something like this. So maybe this is, I just put tidbit here. Maybe this could be, I don't know, if you're doing like a history class, maybe years, or maybe it's like an employee onboarding and you're doing some background on your company. Somebody can click through here. A couple things. Um, the learner can't go next unless they at least read all of these. And something else I put in, after they complete, I'm going to give them a knowledge check. Now, maybe they click through really quickly, they didn't really read, and they're like, oh man, I need to go back and read that. I need to go back and read that because I'm going to get tested on it. So we can return and start again. Okay, so let's work on this together and build this out. Okay, so I've already built a lot of this out, but we still need to do a few things. This is the first slide, or the first layer your learner is going to see. Now, something to keep in mind, your base layer here, I always name it base layer also, you can't return to this layer if you send the learner into another layer. So you kind of want the bare bones on this layer, if anything at all. Like, I'm going to have these tidbits in my progress bar. It's going to be in all my layers, so I built it in the base layer, but that's it. Okay, so my first layer is going to be this background, which is going to get them into the timeline, or whatever kind of line this is. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is choose how they're going to go through these layers. So I put in these arrows. You could also use maybe just clicking on these. I want it to be very intuitive, so I threw in these arrows, but however you want to do it. So I want to show layer, and the next layer is going to be 1 when user clicks up button. Okay, and this is going to be disabled, or I'm just not going to do anything to it. All right, let's go to the next one. Now we're on tidbit 1. I want to show layer 2. Go to 2. Show layer 3. And then I also want to show 1 if they want to go back. Okay. Next one. So I'm going to go through this real quick and then meet you back here, okay? All right, so I think I got all those done. Let's test it out. So something I notice, I need to hide my base layer, some bits on my base layer. So let me do that real quick. I'll do one with you, and then if we come down here, open up our base layer objects, I need to hide a few things. Text box 7. Okay, I'll show you that again. It's already open. And again, I'll go through this real quick and then we'll come back together. Okay, so I got all those little bits I want from my base layer that I don't want showing up here. Let's take another look. Yep, that's better. Okay, the next thing we want to do is work with this this finish button. Okay, I'm actually going to put this on my base layer, and I want to hide this. Change the state of this rectangle to hidden when user clicks. No, I want when timeline begins. Timeline begins. Timeline starts on this slide. Okay, because I don't want them to be able to finish before they at least look at all of these. Okay. The next thing we need to do is I'm going to go up to my tidbit layer 5, and when the learner clicks to tidbit 6, the finish button is going to show up. Okay. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a variable. So here's our variable button over here, and I'm going to name this what should I name this? All layers, and I'm going to make this a true false variable. Default value false. Okay. Now we need to add in this variable. Make a text box. Insert reference, and this is my only variable, so I'm going to say okay. All right. I'm going to leave this here for now. Before I finish, I'm going to put it outside of the box so we can't see it. Okay. Now, back to our finish button. This variable is going to cause this finish button to appear when all of these have been viewed. So we need to change the state of rectangle 3 to normal when variable changes. Where are you? Right here. When variable changes, all layer view. Just variable changes. Okay. And we need to go to layer 5. And this button, when the learner hits this button, it's going to change the variable. The variable change is going to make this finish button appear. All right. So change or adjust variable to true. Remember, our default is false when user clicks up button 1. Okay. Let's see if this works. Yep, it works. So when I was on, and it'll stay there because the variable is going to continue to be true. Okay. Now I showed you before, we got to create a new slide. And let's make the finish button go to the next slide. Jump to slide, next slide, okay. I'll copy this button. Now maybe the learner wants to return, so they continue on, but then they decide, oh, I need to go back and like really read this. So I'm going to make a return button. And let's, just for the sake of clarity, ready for the knowledge check. So learner reads this, they say, oh man, I didn't do a very good job reading, I better go back. So I'm going to send this guy, I don't want to show layer, jump to slide. User clicks. So to return, we got a few things to think about. Go to story view, slide properties, and when revisiting, let's say reset to initial state. Okay. The other thing we need to do is we need to reset this variable to false when they click through. So if they come back, that finish button's not going to be there. It'll just make it look a little nicer, I think. So how about when we'll use the finish button, change this, adjust variable value to false when user clicks rectangle 3. So when they move forward, they're going to hit the finish button, they're going to move to the next slide and reset this whole slide, at least the variable. So when they come back, the finish button's not going to be there. And one more thing we need to think about here is the order of operation. So if you look over here, rectangle 3, that's our finish button. Jump to next slide. So the first thing it's going to happen is it's going to jump to the next slide, but when that happens, it's not going to reset the variable. So we need to have the variable be reset first. So if I click on that, move it up. So this will happen before you jump to the next slide. All right, let's try it out. Okay, it's working so far. See, the finish button is no longer there, and it reset the whole slide. So that's what we want. And the other thing we want to do is make sure our variable text box here is not on our screen. Just put it off to the side here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Making an interactive timeline or whatever you want to do with this using slide layers and variable.